Hey, First Baptist. I want to follow up on the video I did on parents specifically, but broader than that as well, pouring into their kids and pointing them to Christ. And we talked about those two wings to the plane, where you have one wing being an authentic example, the other wing being faithful teaching. And both of those necessary as we walk forward, trying to show our kids and tell our kids about who Jesus is. So I want to talk a little bit more about that faithful teaching idea. We talked about faithful teaching being an along the way thing in the midst of life, an overflow just as we live and see life through the gospel and in light of Scripture. But I also want to talk about the idea of a faithful teaching taking the form of a more planned or structured time in your family's life. This would be what people think of as family worship or family Bible time or family devotions. And this has a long history throughout the history of the church, of fathers really especially, but mothers too, and especially mothers if you're a single mom or your husband's not a believer, of parents taking on seriously this responsibility to train up their kids. Think of Ephesians 6, where it says, fathers, train up your children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord, right? So thinking about what does that look like? And like most things in life, if we're serious about that calling, if we think it's a big deal, if we think it's this incredible privilege and joy, then we're going to plan it. We're going to make time for it, right? And we do that for things we think are important. And it just makes sense with this too. You know, our kids get so much input from so many different places. Then they're dealing with the sin in their own hearts. And so this opportunity for us to make a habit, a plan, a structured time where we sit down and we teach them about Scripture, where we point them to Christ, man, how valuable is that? Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we make that kind of habit? And habits are helpful in all sorts of areas, but especially in this. Habits can become hollow and just without any heart and meaningless, but they can be helpful. And I think they are in this. So I want to encourage you as families, whatever family structure looks like in your family, to find time to make a habit out of this. To sit down together and read Scripture, pray, and sing. I would encourage you to keep it simple. That's one of my mottos with this. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, where you read something, you pray, and you sing. So maybe you read from a Bible story book. We have like 4 that we've done, another couple like theology or different catechism type stuff. And we've gone through all these different ones. I can recommend it. I'd love to. Just read something. Read a passage of Scripture. The Gospels are great for that especially. And then talk about it a little bit. On Sunday nights, we typically talk about the morning sermon or children's church lesson. Sometimes that gets delayed till Monday nights, but we take time to reinforce that and talk about applying it and have discussions. And so read something, right? It has to be simple, right? Keep it simple. Read something, pray. Just take time to pray. Some evenings it might be short, maybe you're pressed for time. Other times you might be able to pray a little longer. Include the kids, encourage them to pray. Hand out requests to them, right? Maybe pray for family, friends, or have maybe a list of requests you go over each time. And then sing. Find a song to sing. Could be fun, silly kids songs about Jesus, or it might be some older hymns that are singable, and you can just through that get this truth into our kids' hearts and minds, right? So keep it simple would be one thing. Secondly, keep it age appropriate. Man, this is not a time for dads to get up and preach a long sermon or lecture. I've drifted into that. You can ask my kids. And keep it simple though. Keep it age appropriate. If they're small, man, it's going to be 5 minutes, right? Maybe you can stretch it out to 10, 15 if they're older. But it's not going to be long. If they're small, man, 3 sentences is about all you got for prayer, right? and the songs have to be super simple and fun for them, right? As they grow older, you can expand that some. But keep it age appropriate. Be realistic, right? And that would kind of be a third one even. Have your expectations tempered, right? So be simple, be age appropriate, and then temper your expectations. If we expect that our kids are going to sit perfectly and they're going to ask questions and be able to repeat everything that we say, the next week or something like that, that's just not going to happen. In fact, often in our house, we've just experienced pure chaos, right? Like one kid's not paying attention and the other seems real distracted. The other can't remember anything. The other, and then we have to discipline a kid in the middle of this. And it can just be hard. And then other times oh man, we got to go. We got something we got to get to, and we're out of time. And then I can lose my temper or something like that. And I get upset because people aren't paying attention. And we just got to stop and pray and ask for forgiveness. But temper your expectations, but know that God will work through that the same, right? He will work through His Spirit. He can use you. You might not feel adequate for this. Like having spiritual conversations might be hard for you. Talking about things like this may seem awkward at first, but man, God can use you. And He can even use, over time, your faithful, just keeping at it, of teaching your kids the gospel. Over time, He will use that. And you might not think they're getting much. You might not think it's valuable. But over time, I promise you will see value in it. And you'll know, man, my God is honored because I'm seeking by His grace to be faithful in teaching my kids the gospel and pointing them to Christ. So I hope that's helpful. So think about those ideas of being simple and age appropriate, of having tempered expectations. Think through those things and make sure you're not going crazy with this. For us, our normal time, we find dinner is the most helpful time. Just as we finish eating, and that's what we're doing. And over time, it becomes just, we all know it, right? No one's surprised. No one's, oh man, we're doing this again. Maybe they did that at one point, but we just know that this is what we do as a family. And it doesn't happen every night. We're kind of all over the place sometimes, not so much with COVID, but or we're missing a kid. Caitlin's often at work in the evenings these days, but we're just trying to keep going, be consistent, and trust God to use it. He loves to work through His Word and through our just humble, dependent faithfulness. So hope that's helpful. Love you guys, and we'll talk soon.